Cinemajaw is sponsored by Overcast, an independent podcast app that embraces the open world of podcasting instead of locking it down. No exclusives, no premium content, no paywalls. Just a great podcast app for everyone. Get it for free in the App Store. And we thank them for their support. You're listening to Cinemajaw, the greatest movies podcast ever, recorded on location at Cards Against Humanity in Chicago. My name is Matt Kay, and with me is...
Ryan the Movie Guy. And sitting inside the fish tank behind the glass is Filmy and Phil.
How's it going, guys?
This week on Cinemajaw, Matt, we cast our web, swing through the neighborhood, crawl up the walls as we cover our top 5 favorite Spider-Man scenes.
I am stoked for this. This is right up my alley.
It totally is. I watched a bunch of Spider-Man the last 2 days after we came up with this topic, going over scenes, and I will give you this right at the top of the show. It hit me, because, you know, I'm not the biggest superhero fan. It hit me that Spider-Man, by far, is second only to Batman when it comes to the prolific cinema career of a superhero.
You're probably right.
100%. This guy's got a ton of movies. He appears in all these other movies.
15 years, I guess.
It's insane.
Yeah.
A lot of good scenes to pick from.
There are a ton. And some great directors have worked on Spider-Man films. So we'll get to all that.
Yes, we have a great guest who's going to be joining us to help us with that list as well.
Yes, indeed. Jon Ravenscroft is returning for his second appearance on Cinemajaw. He is a government agent. Let's just say that. No, he does movies in the park here in Chicago, which is one of the best things in our city. Can't wait to talk to him about that.
Yeah, it's summer, right? And it's time to talk about movies in the park and doing things outdoors with the family.
Yeah, I agree. Picnics.
Love it.
Yeah. Bring a bottle of wine, some cheese. Check out a movie in the park, Ryan.
It's the best.
It really is.
Besides that, there is even more going on. Is there not, Phil?
Oh, you know there is, Ryan. So instead of an eye for an eye in a Cinemore this week, we actually have a lot because it is the first of the month, and we not only have a new riddle, but we also have a new monthly theme.
And we have 2 reviews, Spider-Man Far From Home and Midsommar.
Oh, I can't wait to talk about Midsommar.
I can't wait to hear about it.
And actually, I can't wait to talk about Spider-Man Far From Home.
Ditto.
We literally just came from the screening, so the
Sweaty
movie ended.
from running here to the studio.
Not even joking when we say this. The movie ended about 15 minutes ago, and we are now going to attempt to try to get our thoughts down on this podcast.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, a little different. I'm sure once we digest it a bit more, we might have even more to say.
Yes, because we are going to be reviewing Spider-Man Far From Home. I thought this is a good time for Matt to take John on in Spider-Man Far From Home cast trivia.
Oh, okay. There's a lot of people in that movie.
There is.
Jake Gyllenhaal, among others.
It is jammed, is it not?
As always, Ryan.
Yes. So, Phil did mention, it is July, Matt. That means
new riddle time, Ryan?
That means new riddle and new theme. Let's start with the theme.
Yeah, so halfway through the year, we've celebrated a very eclectic group so far. Our list currently includes Samuel L. Jackson, Stephen King, Brie Larson, Keanu Reeves, and Tilda Swinton, not to mention that we also had a romantic comedy month in February for Valentine's Day. So, for the month of July, we have selected a writer/director whose movies are literally always event films when they come out, winner of 2 Oscars for screenwriting, and nominated for 2 Oscars in directing. Ladies and gentlemen, and jawheads everywhere, Cinemajaw is proud to announce July as Quentin Tarantino month.
Ooh.
Nice. Big movie he's got coming out.
Yes. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
It's huge.
Good time to celebrate Mr. Quentin Tarantino.
I agree.
I like this.
What a great celebration.
Yeah, and so throughout all of this month, you can expect to hear some interesting facts on the filmmaker, hear some classic clips, and we're going to be throwing out poll questions and more on Instagram and Twitter, so keep heads up, jawheads. With that being said, we're going to kick it off with our first fact on Quentin Tarantino. After watching Reservoir Dogs, Madonna, who is the subject of the opening dialogue, sent Tarantino a copy of her erotica film with the message, "To Quentin, it's not about dick, it's about love. Madonna."
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, I don't even know. I mean, geez. That's great.
It's such a great dialogue scene in Reservoir Dogs, and Madonna says, "Oh,
She commented.
touche." Yes.
Yeah. Well done, Madonna.
I
Well
like
done.
it. Yes, Matt, you did mention before we bring John in, we do have a new riddle.
Yeah.
And before we announce that July riddle, we do need to clean up June's.
Yeah, so here's the June riddle one more time for you guys. This riddle is not a dream, nor is it impossible to solve. You know that I have acted on stage with Michael Keaton. You know that when I was young, I was married to Ben Stiller. Hell, you even know the weight of my soul. I've had jungle time with Jack Black, and now that you've heard this riddle, you have 7 days to answer it. Who am I?
Heard from a few jawheads, one of them being Alex Stahersky, who's been picked as a winner on the show and took you on in trivia.
Yeah.
He wrote in and he said, "At first I thought this riddle isn't a dream was a reference to Mulholland Drive, since that was the film that made her famous and is all about dreams. But looking at her filmography now, I'm guessing you were going for Dreamhouse. Impossible to solve seems to be pointing toward the impossible. She acted on stage with Michael Keaton in Birdman, and when she was young, she was married to Ben Stiller in the film While We're Young. We know the weight of her soul from 21 grams. She was in the jungle with Jack Black looking for King Kong and had 7 days to live in the ring. Your June answer is Naomi Watts."
That's right.
That is correct, Alex Stahersky. So let's pull out a winner. And the June winner is Tim Costa.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Does his own podcast over
I've
there,
heard
Tim.
the name.
Yes. All right. Tim Costa, write us feedback at cinemajaw.com. And you can either take Matt on in trivia or win a prize pack.
So on to the July riddle.
Oh, wow. July.
Yep. Here we go,
This
guys.
is a big one.
I was adored by thousands of right-wing Pennsylvanians before I got shot, including Jack Black. Starring alongside Robin Williams when he had a mustache made it difficult to keep a straight face on set, I imagine. I was a good person who didn't make a lot of sense when Sean Penn pinned a crime on me. I've been a Viking, a prisoner, a ball player, and a buddy to Martin. Who am I?
If you know the answer to the July riddle, write us feedback at cinemajaw.com. You can take Matt on in trivia or win yourself a prize pack.
All right. Do it.
Woo, a good start to the show.
Yeah.
Keeping things rolling here, Matt. As you mentioned, our guest, Jon Ravenscroft, has been on Cinemajaw once before. He is in charge of movies in the park here in Chicago. Jon, welcome back.
Thanks, guys. It's good to be here. I'm excited to be back.
How's things? Well, let's see. How did last year wrap up? Did everything go well according to plan?
Yeah, we had a great year in 2018. We had that was our 18th year of Movies in the Parks. It was our 5th year of our Chicago Onscreen local film showcase. So we added last year a big 3-day multi-screen festival celebration of local film in August, which went really well. Some rain accepted, but we had a really good time showing almost 30 hours of film and episodes made here in Chicago in a park all at the same time.
I believe our old engineer, Elias Rodriguez, had one in, if not last year, maybe the year before, but...
Possibly. He may have been, we had we featured some of our content, but also content from other programming partners throughout the city, and he may have been in one of their programs.
That's awesome.
How many parks are involved in movies in the park now?
We do annually about 225 to 250 parks.
Wow.
Jeez.
Yeah.
And they all show multiple films. I mean, it's usually they don't do just one, right? They're doing
Actually, most
a
of them
few.
do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so most do one night they do a movie in the park.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's sort of it may not be their only event in the summer, but it's one of their big events they do with their community and with their park users and their park people in the summer is a big sort of like picnic and celebration around that one movie.
So what about the logistics of the screen and the sound and all that? Like, is that something that the park district like brings out and handles? Like you guys put up the screen and...
It is. So I oversee a small but mighty team of 14, 15 people. And we have 3 big box trucks, and we have all of the equipment on those trucks. So we are an entirely self-contained mobile program. So we dispatch out every night from our central location, go out to parks, set up the screens, set up the sound, projector, even make the popcorn and serve the popcorn, and then pack it all back on a truck and drive back at the end of the night.
That's
so
pretty
we
awesome.
are all over all the time.
What's the... Okay, this is sort of a nightmare scenario type thing, right?
Oh,
because
God.
Movies in the park. I've been lucky. The one that happens in my backyard park, Rogers Park, has, knock on wood, always had some pretty good weather. But there's got to be some stories of when you see those black clouds rolling in. Do you have like a nightmare scenario, like a screen blowing over or something?
Yeah, I mean, I've lived through some of those nightmare scenarios. We had the nightmare scenario is actually more when you have no idea it's coming. When you can't see the black cloud and suddenly it's pouring. I mentioned the Chicago Onscreen festival we did last year. It was a 3-night festival. The first night was a Thursday. It was beautiful. It went so well.
This was at Millennium Park?
This was at Pingtown Park in Chinatown. And the second night, it was off to a really great start. And I was sort of walking around between our 3 screens and managing some, we were doing fireside chats with some filmmakers around a campfire.
Oh, wow.
Managing all of that, and got a notification on my phone that rain was going to start in 10 minutes.
Oh,
and I
man.
sort of looked around, and it didn't look like rain was going to start in 10 minutes, so didn't pay much attention. And 10 minutes on the dot, the sky just opened up, and it was the heaviest rain that I've ever been through. And
What do you do?
I mean, it's a scramble. What I always sort of tell my staff when we do training in the spring and when we go throughout the summer is when that happens, the first thing you do is kill the generator because you want to get electricity out of the equation. And then you start packing stuff back onto the truck in sort of, I always say, the order of expensiveness. So the projector goes on the truck first, and then the computer goes on the truck, and then the mixer goes on the truck, and then we start with speakers. The screen is the very last thing. It's a vinyl inflatable screen. Rain cannot hurt it. It just makes it about 100 pounds heavier. So my staff gets really upset when they have to pack that up. But
That's got to be a bummer.
yeah, it is. It can be a nightmare.
Now,
and wind is terrible.
Are you doing that same festival again this year?
We are doing that same festival again this year. This year going to Humboldt Park with 3 screens and programming. So we have 13 official selections through Chicago Onscreen this year. So 13 films that the Park District and our selection team have curated. Plus then we'll have programming content from these currently 4, hopefully 5 or 6 other organizations bringing in content. So we'll have, again, about 30 hours of local film time over 3 nights.
Wow. Do you know the dates off the top of your head?
August 29th through the 31st at Humboldt is the festival. And then the 4 days before that, the 26th through the 28th, so I guess 3 days, are our neighborhood screenings. So we'll be in 8 parks throughout the city beforehand with our 13 official selections.
Oh, that's awesome.
That is fantastic. And Humboldt Park is a beautiful, sprawling park.
It really is.
It's large.
Yes, it's beautiful, and it is huge, and really just scenic and historic and wonderful.
It is.
Yeah.
That's great. For the jawheads in Chicago or going to be traveling through Chicago this summer that want to learn more about movies in the park, maybe find a schedule, where's the best place to do so online?
The Chicago Park District website, chicagoparkdistrict.com/movies, has our entire summer schedule of movies as well as all of the information about Chicago Onscreen and our local films as well.
If I put you on the spot and I said, what's your favorite movie that you programmed this year that you know is playing in one of the parks, what would you say it is?
Well, I would say my favorite that I'm hoping we'll reschedule. It was my favorite one that was on the list that got rained out a couple weeks ago is Tu Wong Fu, which was going to be showing at the History Museum in Lincoln Park. It got rained out that night. It just wasn't possible to do a movie. So I'm hoping we reschedule that one. I love that movie. I thought it was a really great, the History Museum chose that movie, and I thought it was a really great sort of marriage of movie and location.
Is that Woody Harrelson?
It's, I can't even remember now. I've been talking about so many other things. I don't know. We'll look it up.
Yeah, throw it in the fish tank.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to say Wesley Snipes.
Wesley Snipes,
Yeah.
Harrelson, and
John Leguizamo?
I think you're right.
Could be.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's cool. Good movie. It's been a long time, though.
Yeah. So that one I was really excited about, hoping it gets rescheduled. I just watched last night, not in a park. I watched at home because of the Spider-Man challenge. I watched Into the Spider-Verse for the first time. I missed it when it came out, and just got to it last night. And we're
You're
showing
welcome.
it. We're showing it. I know it's amazing, and I love it.
Yeah.
And thank you. We're showing that one a lot this summer, and I'm really happy now. I mean, I was happy before.
That's a great movie to show in the park, right?
It really is.
Families will just love the movie
Yes.
in general, and it's a fun movie to see. It's an exciting movie to see.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
big
I'm
time.
gonna be. Yeah.
Good stuff.
All right, one last quick question for you. Do you have people from other cities, other park districts and municipalities around the country contact you and want to set up their own movies in the park programs?
We do. I get that maybe a couple times a year. And the question sometimes is just a city will call and they have a Movies in the Parks program and they're curious about how we operate at the scale that we operate. Because we do 200 to 250 movies every summer over the course of only 3 months.
What does your spreadsheet look like?
Yeah. And so sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's a city that's just figuring it out. And how do you get licensing and how do you do that legally and pay so that you are actually screening the film properly? What kind of screen do you have? What kind of projector do you use? And questions like that.
If people want to get in touch with you to get this started in their own city, what's the best way?
That can also be through the Chicago Park District website. My name, especially on the Chicago Onscreen page, my contact info is there as the director of Chicago Onscreen.
Brilliant.
Awesome. Jon is going to be sitting in on this entire jaw. He has his top 5 favorite Spider-Man scenes picked out. We like to end our interviews with a silly cinema cue. Phil, do you got something for Jon?
Yeah, John, I do. So to start off our first week of Quentin Tarantino month, I wanted to ask you which of the recurring actors that he likes to use do you think he gets the most out of? Because he's been known to use a lot of people over again: Christoph Waltz, Uma Thurman, Samuel L. And he always gets great performances out of them. Who do you think shines the most?
It's interesting, and sort of going back to, again, because it's one of my more recent views of his, is a rewatch recently of Kill Bill 1 and 2.
Oh, yeah.
And so, off the top of my head, I want to go with Uma Thurman, and just thinking of the work that I've seen her do in a Tarantino film and the work that she's done elsewhere, and sort of the difference in the two. And so I think he does get not necessarily better work out of her, but different, and she sort of works differently in his films.
I think that's a really good point, actually.
That is a really good point. It may be the best stuff of her career. I mean, at least the most iconic.
Right, for sure.
I really like her. I was just thinking when you were saying that, I'm like, yeah, what else do I like her in? I love Gattaca, and I've mentioned it on the show. She's in that. But you're right. After that, I love her in the Kill Bills and Pulp Fiction, and then it sort of wanders off for me. And from there, I'm like, where would I go next with my next favorite?
Beautiful Girls? It's kind of an odd pick, obscure.
Yeah. Good point. Like it.
It is a good point.
All right, Matt. No eye for an eye this week, so we're jumping right into this review.
That sounds good. All right.
It has been 2 years since the last standalone Spider-Man film, Homecoming, came out. Tom Holland, who we met as the new Spidey in Civil War, casted quite the web. Both critics and fans loved his film. Now he's back with the first Marvel film post-Endgame. This is not a small neighborhood task. With this film, will Marvel play its hand as to what the next look of the MCU is? Will Spider-Man be the new face of that universe? Matt and I packed our bags for a European vacation and movie time with our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Heads up, Nick Fury's calling you.
I don't really want to talk to Nick
Answer
Fury.
the phone.
Why?
Because if you don't talk to him, then I have to talk to him. I don't want to talk to him. You sent Nick Fury to voicemail?
I gotta go.
You do not ghost Nick Fury.
What up, dorks? What's up? We're just talking about the trip.
I'm here in St. Marco Polo's. Oh,
I think MJ really likes me.
that reminds me when I first fell in love.
You're a very difficult person to contact, Spider-Man.
All right, Matt, we just walked out of this, so this is going to be a little bit tough.
I feel bad for John, who's...
Yeah, he's going to be excited to see this.
It'll be fine.
Okay.
But summing up, as we do usually to start the reviews, is the plot of this film. And if you've seen, obviously, the trailer or the commercials, and by the title of the film, there is a vacation here. Peter Parker is finishing up high school. Him and his classmates are going to Europe.
Yeah.
And he does not want to be Spider-Man during this time. His main objective of this summer trip is to actually
let MJ know
that he
has a crush on her.
Exactly.
Right.
So
it's a very normal high school thing.
Yes. So off they go. We do get a tidbit right at the beginning of what transpired in Endgame and how it affected these kids in high school. Very well done, brief, funny, and hit it right on the spot.
They do the math for us.
Exactly.
Right.
And they sum up a lot of good stuff there. Eventually, we do get to Europe, but of course, it's no vacation for Mr. Peter Parker. There is this
Guy can't catch a break.
weird, mysterious elements going on that we come to find out are somewhat because, or maybe related to, a new character who's introduced named Mysterio, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, who knows these elements. These elements are from his
universe. Right. He's from another Earth.
This comes into play. We get a multi.
You forgot to mention Nick Fury.
Right, Nick
and
Fury.
Maria Hill.
Are involved.
Right.
They want Spider-Man to meet up with Mysterio, who is a good guy.
Yeah. Or are they?
Or are they,
involved?
right? But, of course, we get some great action sequences with Spider-Man and these elements. And, of course, his name's Mysterio, guys. Something's up.
Yeah. You keep saying elementals, right? They're the fire, water, rock creatures that we see in the trailers. No spoilers here. And they attack Spider-Man and his friends at every turn.
Yeah, they seem to go to different cities in Europe here. We have Venice, Prague, Berlin, and each time one of these what are they called? Elementals seems to attack the group.
You never played D&D, did you?
I did play it.
Oh, okay. Well, then you should know, man. Come on.
It's been a long time. Of course,
dust off your dice, Rai.
There is a twist involved here. I don't think that's giving too much away. And we are going to do a spoiler lounge on a separate podcast, a separate download.
Yes.
On this.
Right.
So we'll get a little bit more detailed when we get to that point. But I enjoyed the film, okay, but I'm going to say this. It wasn't my favorite Spider-Man by any means. This didn't completely knock it out of the park.
Can I take a crack at it?
I don't think it was as good as Homecoming. And there were actually some parts that I was a little bit annoyed about, or I would say fell flat. Now for your opinion.
I think the first act of this movie is an absolute mess. Total mess. It doesn't get good until the turn comes. And then it really shoots up. And I was waiting for that because I'm like, if this doesn't get good soon, I'm really not liking this Spider-Man movie. And I was disappointed thinking that in my mind. I'm like, this is Spidey. I have a son named Parker, for God's sake. And that's why he's named Parker. It's not a coincidence, you know? But they do. And it hockey sticks right up. The action scenes in this make the action scenes in Homecoming look like they were done on somebody's Tandy computer in 1985.
I wouldn't go that far.
Oh, I would. They definitely took a page out of the Into the Spider-Verse playbook and put it into a live-action movie. When you have a character, a villain, who is casting illusions, you got to go deep, and they just nailed it. This was some of the most creative stuff I've ever seen.
But what I didn't like is the fact, you got a guy casting illusions where the danger isn't so real. And when you got to get to the actual action of what Spider-Man's ultimate goal is to take down the guy who's casting the illusions, that isn't all that exciting.
It isn't?
I didn't find it to be.
Oh, I did. I disagree completely. Why? Wait, I'm very curious.
Because we see what's behind the illusions.
Right.
And I didn't
that doesn't
find
make
that,
it any
that
less
all that,
dangerous,
that
right?
Right. Well, to me, it didn't. And I know even the characters who are somewhat in on the fact that this is what they believe to be illusions, they're even saying to themselves, hey, nothing can hurt us.
Right. But they're wrong.
Technically.
To a degree.
Right.
Yeah. No spoilers here.
Okay, there's his friend, Peter Parker's friend.
Yeah, his buddy.
Yeah. And he was a huge comic relief in Homecoming. Mm-hmm. I just hated him in this one.
Wow.
So he has this relationship where he gets in with this girl, and the first time they joke around, okay, that's somewhat of a funny joke here or there to start it out, but they lay it on heavy, and they just never go away from it, and it's like, come on already. I was
Didn't bother me at all.
Very annoyed. Multiverse was mentioned.
Yeah. The Earth 616, they called it by its proper name.
Oh, it is?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, this is
a deep Marvel comic nerd type thing.
Oh, it is?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. My favorite scene here, and we're processing here, is just after the turn where you say it sort of up-peaked, and that's when Mysterio has a toast celebrating
that's your
some
favorite
stuff.
Scene.
Oh, did I love it. He's going on, and this is Jake Gyllenhaal at his best. He's so charismatic.
Really?
Oh, I love that part.
Huh.
And he's thanking certain people, and there's some flashbacks to what these people have done in previous Marvel films.
I kind of want to go back and watch those scenes now.
That was hilarious.
And it's got to be, yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't want to spoil anything. I did not like that scene at all. I thought too much exposition. They're telling us instead of showing us.
Oh, Gyllenhaal was having a blast with it at that point.
Yeah, it seemed a little too contrived. It was almost Joker-ish, and not in a good way.
I liked it.
Favorite for me is that action sequence. It was just out of this world, man.
I thought it was. There were a couple times in the action sequence where he's doing stuff. It's tough to describe it without
spoiling things.
Without spoiling things, but he's inside the illusion, and so you can't see even. I guess you don't know what Spider-Man's actually doing because you don't see it on screen until he's almost done it.
You know that scene in Doctor Strange?
There's nothing that I'm worried about because I don't even know what he's doing inside there.
Well, but that's the thing. It's like somebody, like a drunk person stumbling around a construction site 50 feet in the air. You know, like they're gonna fall. It's scary. Like that's what the danger is for Spider-Man in that moment. Pretty close to literally. It's just like that scene in Doctor Strange. It's very much like an acid trip, only not weird for weird's sake as it was in Doctor Strange. It's very more like the things that Peter Parker would hallucinate. So I found it really creative and good. I liked it a lot. Can't wait to watch it again.
I have to ask you this. This is the second incarnation of MJ, I guess. Was there one in the second? Who played him in the second one?
Yeah,
it was Gwen Stacy in the Andrew Garfield ones.
Andrew Garfield.
Well, Gwen Stacy was the love interest, but they did have an MJ. So
yeah.
Throw that in the fish tank.
Well, my point being, if I have a downer of it, I just don't like this MJ. She never smiles. She's just moping the entire time. Thinks she's smarter than she is. I don't
That's
know.
her defense mechanism, dude.
She's not my MJ.
I like her. I mean, listen, I grew up with Kirsten Dunst, just like the rest of us. I mean, I'm sure we're going to talk about some of her best scenes later, but you know, I love this little. She's cute. She's a little dark. I don't know. She just seems a little bit more real and definitely up with the times. And I like that. You know, it's not just some white chick with red hair. They're actually trying to diversify the cast a little bit. It's refreshing, frankly.
I did like not the main action sequence you were talking about, but the illusion when he doesn't know it's all an illusion yet, Peter Parker. So not the final one, but they really throw a lot at you. That was on screen. It looked pretty good.
Okay. The thing that I dislike the most is they're really heavy-handed with the death of Iron Man.
Mm-hmm. It looms large.
It looms large, and it should, right? But like every street sign, every like wall that he looks at has a mural of Iron Man on it. Like, Jesus Christ, they are really clobbering you with this.
And what was shocking was the movie actually opens up with sort of a joke on the emotional weight that Endgame had with all these fans, right?
Yeah.
There's actually a little bit of a joke where I was laughing out loud hard because I was actually thinking how serious Matt and all these Marvel fans are with their superhero characters, and this was sort of making fun of that, to me anyways. And then, but they still poured it on heavy-handed with Iron Man, I agree.
Yeah, they really did.
What did you think, though, of Jake Gyllenhaal being the Mysterio, being the villain?
I think Jake Gyllenhaal's...
I mean, where does he rank in your Marvel ranking of villains?
I don't think he's as good as Vulture was, who might be second only to Loki in the Marvel Universe. But I don't know. He's up there, top 5 for sure.
Yeah.
He was pretty good.
I enjoyed his performance, but I don't know. It's a tough villain to portray.
I think he did a fine job with it. I hope we see more of
only because his
character.
powers are so strange.
That's what makes him cool.
Summing this one up without doing spoilers here, Matt.
I think we already did like some
light spoilers, but we're going to do
everybody
more.
kind of knew that going in, right?
It's difficult coming out of these sometimes because you're hyped up just coming out of the movie. So realistically, how many jaws you giving this one?
3.
Okay. I'd say it's 2.5 to 3. We're not terribly far off.
And Jesus, man, they wound up. This is not a spoiler, but every Spider-Man movie seems to end with an animated Spider-Man sequence, and no different here. We get the little like animated credit scenes, and there's a Ramones song. So they hit all the Spider-Man beats, which was good, I guess.
It's a Marvel movie. There were some Easter eggs after the credits. Did you like where that went?
Yes and no. I have some deep questions about an overall choice the Marvel cinematic universe has made with some characters. And that's all I can say without spoiling things.
Yeah, that we'll save for our spoiler
But
lounge.
I did like seeing those characters once again.
Movie poster quote?
Too soon? I don't know.
Too soon, huh?
Too soon. Yeah, I got to think on this
Oh,
one.
I thought that was the quote.
No. I'd say swing into the theaters and check this one out. You know, it's pretty basic on the nose. What about you? Got one?
Spider Vacation.
Yeah. Okay. I think you should take a vacation from making movie poster quotes.
Oh, boy. It's tough going over these coming right out of the screen.
It is. You really need to let it sink in. But hey, we did our best, guys. We rushed to the studio just to get you, the Jawheads, this special one-of-a-kind review.
Yeah. On my way over, I was thinking in my mind where I would rank this as a Spider-Man film, because we were doing our top 5 and I was about to reveal our top 5 favorite Spider-Man scenes. And I ended up watching a bunch, as I mentioned. And so on the drive over, and I guess we'll start here before we get to our top 5.
Yeah.
Where would you rank this? I think that is a good question that you should be able to pinpoint.
Yeah. So it's better than the third Spider-Man 3 of the Raimi series. It's definitely better than both Andrew Garfield movies. I don't think it's so that would at least put it at 4, maybe 5.
Yeah, I think 4 or 5 also. It's definitely not as good as the first 2 Sam Raimis, not as good as Spider-Verse, not as good as Homecoming.
Agree.
So I'd put it on par with maybe the first Andrew Garfield.
Oh, I think it's a little better than that one.
Okay, that's where we're about.
They got
at
more
with this.
right with the character in this one.
I still don't like Spider-Man's suit ever since he's messed around with this Tony Stark.
Hey,
it still bothers me.
Did you guys notice that scene in the trailer is completely not in the movie?
Which one?
You know what? We'll save it. We'll save it for the
spoiler
lounge. That's a teaser for you, Jawheads.
Yeah. More to come. All right, we are covering our top 5 favorite Spider-Man scenes. John, we threw this one to you, not even knowing if you were into Spider-Man at all. Was it a tough list to come up with, or fun? Did you know what you were doing right off the bat?
It was a little tricky for me. I am a fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I didn't grow up reading the comics and wasn't really familiar with Marvel, so my exposure and experience with it has been much more recent and not as sort of like deeply ingrained in me. And Spider-Man has always sort of been a blind spot for me. So I did.
Poor lost soul.
I know, but this might change things. This might change things, Matt.
That's good.
So I did consult some people in my life who are bigger Spider-Man heads than I. But yeah, it was once I started looking at some things and thinking back on the movies that I do know, I was able to come up with some stuff. Yeah.
What do you got sitting at number 5?
Number 5 for me, I had to write them down. Number 5 for me was the final big battle from Homecoming. But specifically, there's a line in there, and I went back and watched the clip because I couldn't figure out why that scene was with me. There's a line as he is trying to stop Vulture from flying away with whatever it is he's stealing, and he says, "I'm trying to save you," which is something so interesting for me for the superhero in the situation to say to the villain. It's something that a lot of superheroes do, like they're trying to save that person, from themselves or save them from whatever. But for someone as sort of young and optimistic as Peter Parker to actually say it was pretty cool, I thought, to have him say that to Vulture, "I'm trying to save you." And then he does. He pulls him out of the fire and, he doesn't die in the explosion. But I thought that was just a really interesting moment for me.
It's a damn good one, man.
And it's great because of the relationship of Spider-Man and Vulture.
Yes.
Yeah. He was trying to get with his daughter.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he was.
Who wasn't MJ, right?
No.
I'm kind of blanking on that. Okay, I was trying to remember.
It was someone else, right? Yeah.
Yeah, throw it in the fish tank. I don't know who the girl's name was.
It's not Gwen Stacy either, unless I'm
could
mistaken.
be a random.
All right, that swings it to me at number 5. I have Blitzkrieg Bop. Every Spider-Man movie has to have a Ramon song, every good one. And this is from also Spider-Man Homecoming, when Peter first suits up and, in the suit that automatically gets skin tight when he taps the button.
Ridiculous.
And swings through New York, testing out his powers. He returns a stolen bike, but he can't find the person who it belongs to, so he just leaves a note, like, don't steal this if it's not yours. And then the scene culminates in the Stan Lee cameo, where, he he comes in on a guy who's stealing a car, and he's like, "It's my car, dude." You know, it's just so funny that whole exchange between Stan and the neighbor. He's like, "Marjorie, how's your mother?" You know, and I just love it. Don't make me come down there, you punk. It's heartwarming. Great sequence.
Nice pick at number 5. For me, I went with Spider-Verse.
Okay. Getting it going right from the get-go, huh?
Well, maybe all 5 of mine are going to be from Spider-Verse.
Wow.
I love the movie that much. But my number 5 is when Miles discovers the identity of Prowler in Spider-Verse.
Yes.
And I rewatched the scene, and a couple of great moments in there. One is the sound that the Prowler has, the sound design. He's got that like streaking sound every time he comes in somewhere, and it just gives you the chills. And it's really awesome because Miles' power is that he can turn invisible. Now he goes to his uncle's place because he can't, talk to his parents, and he's looking for comfort. And this is when the Prowler enters his uncle's place. What the hell is the Prowler doing there? Well, Matt, we come to find out what the Prowler's doing there.
Yeah, we do.
And, of course, Miles is invisible. The really tense moment and sort of shocking and a little scary. The sound, the animation, everything. Loved it.
It's a damn good movie.
Yeah, I love that moment. I loved it so much. It didn't make my list, but I loved it.
Into our 4s we go.
Great. For 4, I went to Spider-Verse for 4. If you're talking about Spider-Man, you got to talk about the transformation. And I thought that the way the bite and the transformation was handled in Spider-Verse, I mean, it was real. I mean, the film is beautiful just visually, and it was really visually beautiful that moment. But it was also sort of really funny the way the bite happened, and then you go super internal and big and dramatic inside of him, and then he just sort of casually flicks the spider off. And he moves on. But what I really loved was then the next day when he's at school and they start to introduce the graphic elements of the sort of language of comic books. Mm-hmm. And they start to introduce the thought bubbles and the lines, and like in a way that for an animated movie what weren't there before. And now it becomes very clear that this transformation has sort of taken him from this animated world into sort of a heightened animated world. And I thought it was really cool.
We're actually going to revisit that.
Yeah.
All the language of graphics in Spider-Verse on one of my picks.
And what I like too is when he gets bit by the spider is when he's doing the graffiti mural.
Yes.
Which is beautiful to look at. I've
with his uncle.
Yeah. I've rewatched this. The only movie that I've bought on 4K. And I got a 4K TV, and this thing just pops off the screen. The colors, the visuals, it's gorgeous. And that scene in particular is awesome.
Well worth it, I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good pick, man. All right, swings it back to me. And at number 4, when they said Sam Raimi was going to be directing the Spider-Man films, I think all of us did kind of a double take on that. On one hand, it really makes sense. On the other hand, it almost didn't, right? Because Sam Raimi up to that point had kind of been known as a horror filmmaker, like the Evil Dead series and stuff like that. There's one scene in his trilogy that really shines as a Sam Raimi moment. And it's so completely undeniably Sam Raimi that it almost belongs in an Evil Dead picture. And this is the scene in Spider-Man 2 when Doc Ock wakes up. He's on the gurney.
I love this scene.
And he's being operated on, and the doctor's like, anybody take shop class? And he fires up that bone saw. And the arms wake up before he does, right? And they start causing havoc, and it just becomes a straight-up Raimi scene. Like, you see things, there's quick cuts. You see from the arms perspective as it grabs people and throws them. A chainsaw comes out all of a sudden and starts going. Just watch that scene again, and it's just the beats, the cuts, the editing. It's so Raimi. He obviously said, the studio, Sony, fine, you get what you want. This scene right here, this one's mine. And he just...
I can see that, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Love that moment.
Totally works, too.
Very horror. It doesn't fit the rest of the trilogy, almost, but does at the same time.
Yeah, but sort of suits Doc Ock.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Who's probably Spidey's best villain, at least on the silver screen. Maybe we'll talk about that some.
Yeah. I stick in with the Raimi trilogy. I go all the way back to the very first Spider-Man film. And I remember being super excited. This movie came out in 2002. Mm-hmm. And if I'm naming my favorite superheroes, because I wasn't, pervy to all the comics like Matt was. He knows every comic hero there is. I knew the big ones. And my big ones were that I liked and that I was excited for movies for: Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman to some degree, and Spider-Man. Those were my four. And so when Spider-Man was getting his own movie, I was like, wow, this is going to really be pretty kick-ass.
It was.
And I went to the theater, pumped up, and we end up getting maybe one of the most iconic shots and definitely one of the most iconic kisses in
here it is.
recent time.
Yeah. It had to be on the list somewhere.
Absolutely. And it came in at number 4, and this is the upside-down kiss between Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and Kirsten Dunst's MJ. It takes place in the rain. There's 3 throwaway bad guys that are just trying to do some harm to MJ, steal her, purse. I can't even remember exactly.
They had ill intent.
Right. And, of course, he sees this, and he comes down, and he makes his way with the bad guys, shoos them away, and then he comes back down, upside down, in the rain. She takes off half his mask just to expose his lips. Doesn't want the mystery of knowing who Spider-Man is at that time. She kisses him, and then he sort of zips back up his web, and she does that cute, giggle into the rain as he ascends up wherever he goes. And it's just this magical movie moment that I think everybody listening to this knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. And Tobey Maguire said that was one of the most difficult scenes he had to film in his career because he was upside down. And you can see the veins in his neck when she pulls his mask down.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that must have been uncomfortable. And the water from the rain was filling up his sinuses, going into his nostrils. So he's drowning.
You're watching it and you're thinking, oh, it's so romantic, this beautiful kiss. And here the guy's almost dead.
Yeah, he's being tortured and having to have a leading man kiss at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff. That was my number 4, the upside down kiss. Could be anybody's number 1.
It belongs
that's
at
a
number
heavy
1.
hitter.
It is a heavy,
it's a heavy
good
hitter.
scene. Yeah.
Into our 3s we go, John.
My number 3 is another scene in a Spider-Man movie that I thought sort of did something different or interesting for a superhero movie. Spider-Man 2, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong. These are all vague, fuzzy memories. Peter stops a runaway train just as it's about to head off of the tracks and into the water. But in doing that, he loses his mask and is exposed to this train full of people. And he stops just in time, but he is down for the count. And the people on the train sort of lift him up and they bring him back, carry him over their heads in a sort of vaguely Jesus pose, which is a little much for me. It's a little too heavy-handed on the symbolism, but sort of get him to the back of the train, and then there's the 2 kids who give him his mask back and sort of make the promise that they won't reveal, right? They won't tell his secret,
right?
Which is an interesting.
But they don't know who he is.
They don't know who he is, but they're also
they could describe him.
They could describe him, but they say something about we're not going to tell. But it's an interesting moment, the people helping Spider-Man as opposed to Spider-Man helping the people.
Yep.
Which you don't see a lot. You don't see that a lot in superhero movies. So it was an interesting moment for me.
I agree. I think one of the most important things about superheroes is their connection to a place. Superman has his Metropolis. Batman has his Gotham, and Spider-Man has New York.
New York City.
And one of the cool things about the character Spider-Man is, and Marvel in general, is they decided, we're not going to make up these fake cities. We're just going to go with the real places and you go to. Spider-Man's on 42nd Street, We've all been there, gone to Grand Central Station. There's Spidey swinging by. That's what makes him a little bit more interesting than the DC heroes, because you can imagine as you're on the train looking up and you might see Spidey swinging by.
Yeah, agree.
It's a good moment. Good pick. All right. At number 3, I'm dipping into the Spider-Verse for the first time. The scene I'm kind of calling Peter and Miles break in. They have to go to the lab to steal a computer.
Oh, this is great.
Yes.
It's an amazing sequence, all the way up to when Miles crawls down the ventilation shaft to when they meet Spider-Gwen. Okay, so that whole sequence is just phenomenal. He crawls through. Miles doesn't know how to let go, so he's stuck up on the ceiling.
And he's trying to teach him to relax. He's like, what do you do to relax? And he starts singing.
That song. And then he falls. And the whole thing, he's like, you don't know how to be Spider-Man yet, But the moment I really like, my favorite moment in this scene, I mean, obviously they have that moment where they're swinging away and they do they're finally in tandem. That's a great, almost a father-son moment.
Yeah.
But this is a detail, but I love this detail. Miles takes a bagel on the way out. They're trying to be nonchalant, right? And he steals a bagel off the lunch tray. You hear somebody goes, "That guy took a bagel," and then they're like, "It's Spider-Man! Stop them!" And they start chasing him. He throws the bagel back, and it hits somebody, and you just see the word "bageled" appear.
That's awesome.
I definitely missed that.
Right.
I'm going to watch it again.
Watch it again. It's totally like a tiny little detail. I loved it.
Yes.
So
I watched that scene yesterday. It's hilarious.
It is. All right. What do you got there, Brian?
Awesome. My number 3, I jumped to Spider-Man Homecoming. First time I'm going there. And this is the, you could either call it the dad talk or the car ride over to prom.
Yes.
Between Peter Parker, whoever the daughter is, Phil's going to fill us in later, and Michael Keaton, who is the Vulture. And this is when Michael Keaton really realizes that Peter Parker in his backseat is Spider-Man. They both know each other. And usually that corny shot of the character looking in the rearview mirror, see it so many times. But Michael Keaton sells it. You know, he's sinister. You want to like him. They couldn't have cast it any better because you want to like the father figure, but you want the guy to have this sinister side. And boy, does Michael Keaton have that in spades. He's so nice, but when he wants to be, and he has this talk, he tells his daughter, going to have the dad talk with Peter Parker, need a moment. And he actually starts talking about never interfere with my business ever again. It is downright scary. You know, it's like it has that feeling of an older man with experience trying to talk down to a kid. And it just works so good with this Spider-Man Vulture.
Yeah, I agree. You know, it just occurred to me that Michael Keaton has now played one of the silver screen's best heroes and best villains in a comic book movie, right?
True.
Interesting.
Yeah. That moment for me too, like that feeling was the same as the reveal of Uncle Aaron as Prowler in Spider-Verse, and just that sinking
dread,
feeling,
you know?
and you sort of, especially you realize it like a half a beat before they do, and you have that half a beat to just fear for it.
Indoor 2s, John.
For 2, I went back to the original. For a fun scene, the sort of like second half of the lunchroom scene. So immediately after the MJ slips and he does the tray thing, the fight that comes after that when he flings the tray over his shoulder and then starts that fight with the school bully.
Is that the Flash that he's fighting?
He's fighting Flash.
He's fighting Flash. Yeah. And I went back and watched that clip just earlier today, and I mean they're all just so impossibly young, but I had forgotten that's Joe Manganiello. Who I had forgotten as a person, but he showed up there and just looks 12. But yeah, the fight and then going into the hallway and sort of like the first sort of in-depth, like super specific camera moves of Spidey sense, right? Mm-hmm. And everything slows down and you see the paper airplane flying through the hallway and the fly and the spitball and all of this, and then it ends with him just with a lunch tray on his head, which is really, really fun.
I remember it having a little influence from The Matrix, which came out in 99, and it had that moment that was still very new, that sort of bullet time moment where everything was in slow motion and the cameras moving around it. It was highly influenced by that.
For sure. I think that the triple backflip was a bit much. When Flash goes in for one of the punches and Pete just completely jumps over him.
Yeah.
Like, come on. If that happened in my high school, like, that's all we would be talking about for the rest of the year.
Yeah, it's not very under the radar.
No, it wasn't too subtle. Him dodging the punches, I can kind of see, like, oh, maybe he's taking martial arts after school. We don't know.
But a triple backflip, forget it.
He doesn't just flip over his head. He flips 3 times. It was like a Jedi jump. It was ridiculous. I mean, Spidey could do it, though.
Silly stuff. What do you got sitting at 2?
All right. At number 2, I am picking a deleted scene.
What? Is that even allowed?
It's allowed.
I don't know.
When
we'll go to the
Spidey,
judges. All right. Phil says it's allowed.
All right. This is a great one. This was in the trailer for the original Spider-Man, the original Sam Raimi #1 film. It did not make the final cut for a very specific reason. There is a bank robbery, and the villains get away in a helicopter. They take off from a rooftop in New York, and they're flying, and then all of a sudden their helicopter stops short in the air. Do you guys remember this? And they're like, oh my God, they're looking around. And then you see Spidey and he's just like casting webs at this thing. And then the camera pans out and it's caught in a web between the World Trade Center towers. And they cut it because the movie came out after 9/11.
Yeah.
So what they did was they added the scene at the end where Spidey lands on the American flag. But it was very close to the 9/11 attacks. In fact, I think it might have even come out the very next summer.
Yes, it came out the summer of 2002.
Yeah.
Right.
So would have been the summer after.
Which was kind of a relief, Like everybody was sort of anticipating this movie because it's such a New York story with Spidey. And but that scene is still out there on YouTube, and it's worth checking out. It's sort of a historical artifact of that time.
For number 2, I go into the Sam Raimi, and I go with what I still think is the best Spider-Man movie, and that is Spider-Man 2. And my scene that I want to highlight is the final confrontation with Doc Ock, where he reveals himself to MJ at this point, because MJ's there. You got the nuclear reactor going absolutely ballistic, and Spider-Man fighting Doc Ock, and he is basically holding an entire structure up.
Yeah, this is really heavy.
Yeah, and his mask comes off. But this moment, this reveal, I don't want to get into spoilers here because we just saw the latest Spider-Man, but I don't think they always handle it as well, these comic book movies, as they do in Spider-Man 2, where she's just sort of shocked and in awe.
She knew.
And somewhat knew it at the same time. But
she
it's all of that in one. All of that in one. And yeah, he says this is really getting heavy. And then he ends up, again, getting Doc Ock to sort of redeem himself. And it's Doc Ock who ends up grabbing the nuclear reactor and going down into the ocean, basically sacrificing himself. And that's how they get out of the whole thing.
He was a great villain, because he wasn't evil at the start. And him and Peter were friends. It was the loss of his wife and the spinal fusion with robotic arms that drove him nuts.
Yeah. And then to conclude my scene is because you got this moment, it ends with her supposedly going to get married to, I don't know the character's name, but he's like the astronaut guy. And she's going...
It was Jameson's son. It's a Wolfman.
Okay, Wolfman. And she's going to get married there, and then nobody's at the altar, and then the ending of the movie, you see her like running to Peter Parker. It's just really warms you. It's a perfect superhero movie, number 2.
Oh, I agree. I mean, seriously, it's up there with Dark Knight, Maybe just falls just shy of Dark Knight as far as superhero movies go.
Clearly, I need to rewatch.
Oh, for sure, man.
I'll put it on the list.
Wow, here it is, our number 1. No crossovers yet. Number 1 Spider-Man scene. John, what do you got?
So I went to, again, it's very fresh. I went back to the Spider-Verse for this one.
I think me and John are going to cross over.
Possibly. So for me, this moment was the great thing about Spider-Verse, because you had multiple Spider-Mans, was it allowed for this sort of mentorship, which doesn't exist anywhere else because there aren't other Spider-Mans. And so Miles throughout the film is trying to figure out what kind of Spider-Man he is. But then the moment he's in his dorm room, I guess, and his dad is on the other side of the door, and his dad is trying to talk to him about how his Uncle Aaron has just died. And he says to him, "I see a spark in you." And I think it goes on to, and whatever you choose to do with that, you're going to be great. You're the greatest of us. And that starts his sort of like second transition of the film, and transformation of the film. And he figures out who he is, and he finds his sort of like confidence. There's that great song, which I think was written for the movie. I don't know if it existed beforehand. "What's Up, Danger?" And and then his transformation. He goes back to the lair underground, and he makes his own suit, and he jumps off a building. I mean, amazing.
It's also my number 1. I got it listed here as leap of faith, because that's one of the characters tells Miles, you got to make that leap of faith, the other Spider-Man. And you're right. What's Up, Danger starts playing. The music is fantastic. The idea that he looks at one point at one of the costumes of Spider-Man. He sort of sees his reflection in that suit, but he ultimately doesn't go with that suit. He goes with the suit that we know that Miles is going to take, and it's that hoodie with the black Spider-Man mask, the Jordans on, and he jumps down. And that shot where he jumps and then the camera turns upside down, so he's basically falling upward with the cityscape above. I watched it just as a movie fan, I got chills because I was like,
Yep.
this is why I love the movies. Just scenes like this. And then he comes down to the ground. He's running with the traffic of New York. He's a New Yorker, Matt.
Yeah.
And he swings right through. It's literally amazing. It's a perfect scene.
Yes, I loved it so much.
It really is. And
My
there's
number one as well. Leap of faith.
One of the small details, like when he jumps off and his hands are still sticking to the side of the building and he actually rips some of the glass.
Yes, I
Yes,
love that
yes.
too.
I mean,
Yep.
you just kind of feel the power of
And
Spider-Man.
it goes into
Yeah.
like 5 panels at one point while he's falling, and it's
Yeah.
got the comic book feel. The music's playing. It's an A.
Is that the best Spider-Man movie?
Yeah,
Or is it
it's-
Spidey 2?
It's that and Spidey 2. I'd have to watch them both. I mean, I was watching scenes and I was like, man, Spider-Man 2 is the best. And then I'd watch a scene from Spider-Verse and I'm like, Spider-Verse is the best. But I'd go back and see Spider-Man 2 and I'm like, ooh, this Doc Ock. You know?
He was really good.
I'll say this, it's very tough to judge the two. One being, trying to do it live action because Doc Ock's execution on screen is a marvel.
To this day,
It still looks good.
It still looks good.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
So I give them credit there. And you got an animated movie in Spider-Verse that did something completely different, that its own thing as well. Enjoy them both, They're
Yeah.
right up there for me.
You don't
for
need
sure.
to pick one or the other. Well done. All right. I guess that leaves it to me. And here's a moment which may not be the most heroic moment, and it may not be the most bombastic moment, of which Spider-Man has many, but it was the most. It was the moment at which my fandom really poured forth the hardest, and I'm talking about Underoos. When Tony Stark says Underoos, and Spider-Man swings in Captain America: Civil War, steals Cap's shield, and lands, and he does like a quick one-liner, And
Yeah.
I think in that moment we just knew. First of all, we were about to see one of the best superhero fights of all time transpire with the airport scene, but in that moment we all knew that Spidey was in good hands. You see his eyes do the little shift, which they had not gotten right in any of them, like the Sam Raimi series or the Andrew Garfield films. Like they just couldn't get Spidey's eyes right. They couldn't justify it, but Marvel justified it right away. His eyes can move. It was perfect. And we all just sort of could exhale, like, oh, thank God. All right, Spider-Man's back, and he's going to be awesome. And he was. And it was just a great moment that summer, man. It was huge, for me anyway.
Honorable mention, because I feel really bad right now for Andrew Garfield. We didn't mention one scene. We just named 15 scenes from Spider-Man, and we don't get one Andrew Garfield. I did rewatch a few of those. I forgot he even fought the lizard dude. I literally forgot.
It was a pretty
it.
good fight sequence.
But that wouldn't be what I would mention. If I was going to squeeze one on, it is the death of Gwen Stacy at the end of the first Amazing Spider-Man.
No, she doesn't die in the first one.
Oh, it's the second one? Oh, sorry. Pardon me. So it's the second one. But the ending where he basically is fighting the, is it the Goblin?
In the second one?
Yeah. Or who's the Goblin's son? Hornet.
It's a Hobgoblin.
Whatever it is. So whoever's got Gwen Stacy drops him, and Spider-Man grabs her. They're inside a clock tower, and she falls down, and Spider-Man shoots his web, as he always does, and he gets hold of her, but she's dangling, and this fight goes on with all these cranks of the clock actually going, and it actually tears through his web, and she goes further down, and he jumps after her, does another web shoot, grabs her, but it's sort of like she somewhat hits the ground, but he stops her right away. You don't know if it was the effect of him, snapping her neck from the fall.
The whiplash, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I love that scene.
This is what happened. This was Gwen Stacy's fate in the comics, and her death in the comics was one of the more permanent deaths in comics. That was said it was never going to be reversed, but obviously every death gets reversed. But for years, decades even, Gwen Stacy's death, the Green Goblin drops her off a bridge, a Brooklyn Bridge actually, and Spidey catches her with his webs, but she breaks her neck. So he blames himself, but there was nothing he could do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was one that I would have mentioned. The only other one that didn't come up was the Macho Man fight in the first one.
Oh, yeah, Bonesaw.
Which was just great because you got
Bruce Campbell.
Tobey Maguire in this just ridiculous outfit, and the fight scene, it's fun, he's jumping around the cage. It's wackiness.
Yeah.
And you get the Macho Man. The Macho Man is in a Spider-Man movie.
That's great.
Thank you, Sam Raimi.
I agree. What about Avengers Infinity War? I don't feel so good when Spidey gets snapped away and he turns to dust.
Oh.
That was huge.
Yeah. Heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking. And then the diner scene. Speaking of Doc Ock, this is my last honorable. The diner scene. MJ says, I just want to kiss you because I just want to know something. Just, because she asks him if he loved her and he has to say no because he's trying to protect her. And then Doc Ock throws a freaking car right through and he just has enough time to get her out of the way. And then he comes in and kidnaps her. Mm-hmm. It's a great moment.
Really good.
It's the prelude to the train scene.
I'm telling you, after watching all of it, talking about it here, I'm convinced it's Batman #1, Spider-Man 2. There's no other superhero up there.
What about Logan, man?
Maybe a point, but I'm not as up to date with the X-Men. So
I'm not talking about the X-Men. I'm talking about Wolverine.
Well, whatever. You know what I'm talking about. All right. If we missed your favorite Spider-Man scene and you have Twitter pulled up, shoot us a tweet at Cinemajaw, or you can email us, feedback@cinemajaw.com. When we come back, we have a review of Midsommar, plus Matt is taking John on in Spider-Man Far From Home trivia. Stick with us.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the...
And now Cinemajaw celebrates Quentin Tarantino month with this clip from his directorial debut, Reservoir Dogs, in which Steve Buscemi and Quentin are not fond of their names.
Here are your names. Mr. Brown, Mr. White, Mr. Blonde, Mr. Blue, Mr. Orange, Mr. Pink.
Why am I Mr. Pink? Why can't we pick our own colors?
No way, no way. Tried it once and doesn't work. You get 4 guys all fighting over who's going to be Mr. Black. But they don't know each other, so nobody wants to back down. No way. I pick. You're Mr. Pink. Be thankful you're not Mr. Yellow.
Yeah, but Mr. Brown, that's a little too close to Mr. Shit. Mr. Pink sounds like Mr. Pussy. How about if I'm Mr. Purple? I mean, that sounds good to me. I'll be Mr. Purple.
You're not Mr. Purple. Some guy on some other job is Mr. Purple. You're Mr. Pink.
Who cares what your name is? Yeah, that's easy for you to say. You're Mr. White. You have a cool-sounding name. All right, look, if it's no big deal to be Mr. Pink, you want to trade?
Hey, nobody's trading with anybody. This ain't a goddamn fucking city council meeting, you know. Now listen up, Mr. Pink. There's 2 ways you can go on this job. My way or the highway. Now what's it gonna be, Mr. Pink?
Jesus Christ, Joe. Fucking forget about it. It's beneath me, you know. I'm Mr. Pink. Let's move on.
I'll move on when I feel like it. You guys got the goddamn message? So goddamn mad, Howard, you guys can hardly talk.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
Hey Jawheads, it's Matt K with a quick update and a sincere and heartfelt thank you to all of the patrons who support us on Patreon. We're going to be using some of your support to help us get some new equipment to step up our video game on social media. So be on the lookout for that and know that that is directly because of your support. If you're not already there, join us at patreon.com/Cinemajaw. You can unlock secret archives, extra reviews, bonus content, even some cool swag. It's a lot of fun, and for just as little as $1 a month, you can get all that and more. So check it out one more time. It is patreon.com/Cinemajaw. We thank you in advance, and for those of you who are already there, thank you.
To get ourselves a treat.
And we are back on Cinemajaw, hanging out with Jon Ravenscroft, who is in charge of Movies in the Park. A wonderful event. Me and Matt have participated in various parks.
Many times.
Again, John, for the listeners here in Chicago or those passing through town this summer, the best place to go to find a schedule and more information.
The Chicago Park District website. So chicagoparkdistrict.com/movies if you want to get technical about it.
Yeah, we'll put the link in the show notes as well.
That's a good idea, Matt.
Yeah, we always do.
Before we get to our review of Midsommar and we get to trivia, we threw a few items into the fish tank, and I know Phil wants to swim up to the top. He's a Spider-Man fan. Open up that fish tank.
Wait a
Who's coming with me besides Flipper? Here.
That's a Sicilian message. It means Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much for letting me out this week. It's been a great week to listen into because, yeah, it's like a big Spider-Man week. Just hearing all the scenes. I'm sure the Jawheads are reliving at home, too, or in their car on the drive and be like, oh, my God, that was awesome, wasn't it?
Yeah, so you just got to pull up YouTube right away.
I know, yeah, for sure. That being said, let's get on into our questions. Matt had thrown this one in. Was Woody Harrelson in To Wong Fu? I did not see Woody in the cast for it, but I did see John Leguizamo, who we mentioned, Wesley Snipes, Patrick Swayze.
It was Patrick Swayze.
Swayze is who we were looking for, yes.
And I did see also there were some cameos by Robin Williams and none other than Queen RuPaul.
Yes.
So
Wow.
There you go.
It looks like a star-studded movie.
I've never seen it.
You never saw To Wong Fu?
No.
It's been a long time,
yeah.
but I've seen it, yeah.
I love it.
Was there an MJ in the Andrew Garfield Amazing Spider-Man movies? So this one was interesting. They actually had plans to put MJ in both of the Andrew Garfield films. However, they took her out. There were a couple of times that they actually ended up shooting scenes with Shailene Woodley as Mary Jane, but the director Mark Webb decided to take those scenes out just because he thought they were distracting from the focus being on Peter and Gwen. So kind of she was, but also kind of she wasn't.
Interesting.
Who do you like better, MJ or Gwen, since you're a comic book guy and Spidey guy?
I mean, okay, is this really a redheads or blondes question?
I don't know.
I don't know either. So I'm going to abstain here.
Okay.
And there's way more. Peter Parker is rolling in ladies, to be clear.
Yeah, I mean Felicia Hardy.
Yeah. He's got honeys. So that's not even the question is MJ or Gwen. It's like, because we didn't even talk about Betty. There's a million.
Or Wilma.
Well done. I mean, Felicia's probably like the best looking. Definitely maybe the best figure of the bunch. Mary Jane's probably the
most iconic.
Most iconic, and probably also the one that loves him back the most. And Gwen...
most mature, I think, too.
Yeah. Gwen sort of died early on in the comic stories, so she was like the first love, which you never sort of get over. I don't know. Tough
Interesting
call.
question. Yeah. Anything else in there?
Yeah, we got one more. What was the character that was the Vulture's daughter in Homecoming? We were right in saying that it was neither MJ nor Gwen. That character was Liz Toombs, and she was played by Laura Harrier, who is from Chicago.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
All sorts of facts.
Yeah.
Good
Big
stuff.
box.
Yeah. Was that everything?
That's all.
Jump back in that fish tank.
Will do.
All right, Matt. One more review for the Jawheads.
I'm excited for this one.
Yes. It was just last June when I became aware of the name Ari Aster. His directorial debut, Hereditary, came screaming into theaters. Supported by an amazing performance by Toni Collette, it was not only one of the scariest movies I saw in a while, but also one of the best. He is back with his sophomore outing, Midsommar. Does he have another scary hit on his hands? I hit the fields of Sweden, met a group of happy people. We all held hands, smiled, and watched it together.
Tomorrow's a big day.
Is it scary?
What is it?
It has special properties. What am I going through?
We just need to acclimate.
I don't want to acclimate. I want to go.
Absolutely not.
What's happening?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, Matt. Midsommar is something to behold. This is a film everyone will want to talk about after seeing it. There is no way this movie will not have an effect on you. For starters, it opens with a horrific situation involving Danny, played by Florence Pugh, and her family. The visuals of the aftermath mixed with music and sound set the mood in a dark way. Great foreshadowing of where the tone is going to end up. We then cut to a brighter day. Danny's boyfriend, Christian, and his friends have been invited to Sweden. They are graduate students writing their thesis. Last minute, Danny decides to accompany them on the trip. One of their friends is from a small community there, and he acts as their guide. He plans to show them all the traditions and festivities this small commune has. The creepy factor is there as soon as they arrive. It's at a 10, Matt. Happy cult-like activities taking place. Everyone in the commune seems happy, which makes things even more nerve-wracking. However, this is not a straight-up horror film. It has plenty of funny moments as well. Will Poulter, he's the bad cop you may remember in the movie Detroit, supplies a lot of those laughs. But the laughter slowly turns into a nervous laughter as things get darker and more tense. There are scenes that absolutely shocked me. But the word I would use to describe my state while watching Midsommar, unsettled. Ari Aster nails the tone of this film. The use of music and sound are crucial, and I urge you to see this in a theater. His camera work also has to be commended. He turns it upside down at one point, and it is a signal to the viewer that things are not going to be right the rest of the way. Midsommar was one of the best experiences I have had watching a movie in a long time.
Wow.
It also caused me to cancel my trip to Sweden. This is a 2019 gem.
Wow.
I loved it, Matt.
Skull.
Yes.
The movie is bright.
It is. And I think that contrast of what's going on here is part of the fun, because you go into this commune and people are smiling and having a good time, and it's a bright sunny day, like everything's okay. But we, the viewer, know what's transpiring here. We know that there's something not right behind all the happiness, behind all the smiles.
Does the horror take place during the sunshine and the brightness?
Yes. That's what's so awesome, is it never goes to like, so many times it feels like it has to be a dark scene for it to be scary. And it does not at all. The shocking scenes, the scenes where you're going to put your hand over your mouth and just be stunned, take place right in the middle of the day on a nice sunny day.
Wow. I can't wait to see this thing, man.
Yeah, and I for me, I don't like answering, oh, is it the scariest movie? How scary is it?
Right.
I don't think that's good ever with horror films, because we're all scared by different things. Let's just talk about these movies as quality of film, right? And if it scares you because it has to do with, cult-like things and communes, that might scare, this percentage of people.
Hippies are scary.
It might not scare somebody else. For me, psychologically, it was trippy. You felt nervous the entire time, and there's nothing better than laughing with these characters, having a good time, maybe taking drugs, and then slowly but surely the theater laughing with just nervous laughter, because I think everybody was on the edge of their seat and feeling the same exact dread, and everybody feeling unsettled and a little off watching this movie.
Does this compare to like a Hostel, where you get the travel horror?
Well, that's a little bit more intense of straight up horror and gore. Right. And that not necessarily here.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Was there a favorite scene you had in particular?
There's a couple, because I don't have a bad one, so I just wanted to highlight a few really great ones here. And I mentioned how much I like the camera work and sound, and I wanted to give some specifics. A couple of shots I need to highlight. One in which you might see it in the trailer. The camera is following a car on the road, and it suddenly, the picture starts to turn upside down, and the car is driving upside down on the top of the screen, and it's on a windy road. And this really puts you in almost like a trance. And that starts to get that tone of like you're walking into something that isn't right. There's a really awesome shot where Danny goes to the bathroom in a living room, and it transitions in between her going into that door and her being on an airplane, which was really awesome. And then lastly, a shot of Danny and her boyfriend Christian talking to the group of guys that they will be accompanying this trip to Sweden. And you don't see them on camera other than like a faint reflection in the living room mirror as they're talking, but you can see everybody else's reaction. Just a really interesting shot. And then sound, as I was mentioning, the music, very eerie at times, but I love how Ari Aster incorporates some of the screaming and crying that takes place on screen. He gets that into almost a rhythmic sound where it almost becomes chanting even though the characters are crying or wailing or screaming in horror. But other people may join in, and the music then starts to take that up, and it's just unbelievable.
Wow. Dude, I am stoked for this. All right, what about a least favorite scene or any trouble with the movie?
No trouble.
No trouble, wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Any influences you see here?
There was an indie film called The Endless that also had to do with two guys who leave a cult and then end up going back to the cult. Anything with a cult like is piques my interest. The Endless, a little hidden gem for people out there.
I'm going to write that down in my journal here, Ryan.
Yeah.
What about, did you learn anything?
I learned that I'm never going to Sweden.
Really?
Yeah,
because
true.
of this movie?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
I'll never visit the country.
I feel the same way about staying in hostels.
Yeah.
Fair.
But I also learned that Ari Aster is a new favorite director of mine. I love when you get a new guy on your repertoire, you know? You get really excited for, you know, Alex Garland, who's coming up. Years earlier, it was Christopher Nolan. And I love when you get somebody, and this guy's one to watch.
Nice. Cool. I concur, as a matter of fact. What about a movie poster quote?
I thought this would be really good. Just hashtag travel Sweden.
That's a good one.
Yeah. I think I actually think the studio should use it.
It's going to be like an anti-commercial for Sweden. now Ryan, the movie guy's never going to go there, and you're a travel guy.
Here we go, Matt K. 4 Jaws for Midsommar.
Is it the best movie you've seen this year?
It's up there. I don't want to say best, but it's up there.
Nice.
Haven't really put the pen to paper yet and ranked my films so far, but it's up there. This is definitely one to see. And like I say, see it in the theater because it has a lot to do with like the characters sort of transporting themselves into an area that they're not accustomed to. And I think being in the theater with the sound and the sights, it's going to help you, get into that mood.
I can't wait.
So can't recommend it enough. See Midsommar. Big fan.
Nice.
All right, we did review Spider-Man Far From Home, so we are playing Spider-Man Far From Home cast trivia.
All right.
Oh, boy.
John, you're our guest. You get to choose if you want to go first or let Matt go first. There are steals that if you get hung up on any question, you get one trip into the fish tank for Fill Me In Phil. They start off easy, John.
Great. I'll go first. Why not?
Question 1 over to John. Marissa Tomei, who plays Aunt May, won an Oscar for this comedy that also starred Joe Pesci.
I'm going to make a guess, and it's probably wrong. I'm terrible at movie trivia. My Cousin Vinny.
That's
1-0, John.
right.
Question 2 jumps over to Matt K. Samuel L. Jackson appears in Tarantino's Django Unchained. Who played Django in the film?
Oh, Jamie Foxx.
Easy ones are off the
Also
board.
Electro in the Spider-Man Andrew Garfield.
Look at how it all comes around.
Yeah.
And I got a Tarantino question
It
in
all
there
comes
since
back to Spider-Man.
It's his month. Question 3 over to John. John, Jake Gyllenhaal starred in the 2005 Gulf War movie with Jamie Foxx. Speaking of, what was the name of that film? A Gulf War movie, Jamie Foxx and Jake Gyllenhaal.
I don't know. I do not know that one.
Any guess?
No. I can't think of a Gulf War movie off the top of my head.
Matt, Gulf War movie, Jake Gyllenhaal, Jamie Foxx, the year 2005.
Oh, man. I can see him in the Desert Combat Gear, but I can't think of the name of the movie. Three Kings. It's not right.
Yeah, that was the only one in my head, but it didn't feel.
That's Ice Cube and Marky Wahlberg and Clooney.
We're looking for Jarhead.
Oh, of course.
Jarhead.
Never saw it.
Still 1-1. Question 4 now moves over to Matt K. Matt, Tom Holland appears in this 2015 movie that starred Chris Hemsworth and was directed by Ron Howard. It was the story that inspired Moby Dick.
Oh, yes. I remember this. Tom Holland was in that?
He was in it.
No kidding. Is that where they found him?
Do have a lifeline if you need it.
What number? What question number?
Question 5.
I don't know if I should use it yet. The Ocean Master.
Good title, though.
Right?
True.
It's like
Ocean Master was
he teams up with the
incorrect.
Beastmaster.
John, you got a chance for a steal.
Okay.
Tom Holland appears in this movie, 2015, that starred Chris Hemsworth, directed by Ron Howard. It was the story that inspired Moby Dick. And it's not Ocean Master.
Yeah, I can't picture anything in that movie.
Is it like Ahab or something?
In the Heart of the Sea.
In the Heart of the
In
Sea.
the Heart of the Sea.
See, I knew it had something to do with the ocean.
Yeah, sure you do.
I've got nothing on that in my head.
All right, it's still 1-1. Big scoring ball game here. Question 5 over to John. John, Marissa Tomei appears in this 2011 romantic comedy that also starred Steve Carell, Ryan Gosling, and Emma Stone.
How come he got both Marissa Tomei questions?
I don't know. That's
Who knows?
confusing. Remind me the year. You said
2011. Steve Carell, Marissa Tomei, Ryan Gosling, Emma Stone. You do have a lifeline if you need it.
Sure, why not?
Whoa! Into the fish tank we go. Phil, what was the name of that Marissa Tomei romantic comedy?
Alrighty, John, your clue this week. The title is 3 words, initials CSL.
No, I don't have it. I have no idea.
Wow.
Must love dogs. CSL. I don't know.
Might have had one of the words right there.
Love, probably.
No, probably dogs.
Oh,
dogs.
I'm joking. Come on, of
Yeah.
course, love. Nothing?
C.S. Lewis.
Crazy stupid love. Look at now, John knows it.
As soon as you said one of the letters was right, I put the other two together.
Wow, still 1-1. Holy cow, is anybody going to score here? Question 6 over to Matt. Matt, Samuel L. Jackson is in the 2008 action movie Jumper. Who starred in that film as the lead, David Rice?
Fill me in, Phil.
Wow, fill me in, Phil. Question 6. Who played Jumper?
Alrighty, Matt, your clue this week. He doesn't like sand.
Nobody likes sand. Even people that love going to the beach don't like sand. It gets in your food. It clogs up your drain in the shower. I hate sand. Who says that? That is a line. God. Jumper. I don't know, man. I'm just thinking Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Incorrect.
Got this one, John?
Chance for a steal, John.
All right, can you remind me the question?
Yes.
Thank you.
Samuel L. Jackson appears in this 2008 action movie Jumper. Who starred in the film as the lead, David Rice? And your clue is, he once said, I don't like sand.
Yeah, nothing. I have nothing.
Oh, geez. Was it the guy that played Darth Vader? What's his name?
Hayden Christensen.
Wow.
Yes, Hayden Christensen. Good clue, Phil, but it's just over everybody's head here today.
It took me a minute.
Still 1-1. Question 7 over to John. John, here you go. And they only get tougher. Lifelines are gone. Jake Gyllenhaal starred in the 2007 film Brothers with Natalie Portman and this actor who played his brother in the film. Who would have played Jake
That's what I'm trying to
Gyllenhaal's brother?
think. Who looks sort of like Jake Gyllenhaal? 2007.
2007.
Okay. Christian Bale. Why not?
Matt, chance for a steal and to take the lead. It's 1-1.
Is it Tobey Maguire?
Unbelievable.
Whoa.
Unbelievable.
I can't remember that film.
2-1, Matt K. Question 8, last question to you. You can win it on a walk-off here, Matt. Matt, in 2013, Tom Holland supplied the voice in a movie that only actually starred Tom Hardy on screen driving a car. Name the film.
Oh, yeah. Wow, really? Tom Holland was in that?
Yeah, he did the voice, I think, of the son that he was calling on the phone.
Was it called like Clutch or something like that? I'll go with
Yeah, go for Clutch?
Yeah. E-brake.
That's incorrect. John, you could tie it here.
Yeah.
Did you see this one? Tom Hardy is driving around in a car the entire time.
It's just the dude's last name.
Mm-hmm. He knows it.
And I don't know what that last name is.
Smith? Is it Smith?
It's definitely not Smith.
It's something with a B, I feel.
It is a kind of Smith.
A kind of Smith.
Yeah, it is a kind of Smith. Something Smith.
Something Smith.
How many Smiths are there?
Oh, anything could be a Smith.
No.
Wordsmith, a Mike Smith, computer Smith.
Blacksmith.
Or
I don't have it. I'm sorry.
Locksmith?
So close.
Locksmith. It was lock. It was lock.
L-O-C-H-E. I can see it now in my head.
Matt wins this one, 2-1, low scoring affair. Can I get a handshake?
Oh, yes. Well done, sir. Well done.
If it came down to a tie, a jawbreaker, we call it, it would have just been this. Age of Joe Pesci, closest to. Matt, you got to guess.
Oh, God.
He might be well into his 70s, I would imagine. I'll say 75 years old.
Lock him in at 75. John, you got to guess?
Yeah, I mean, that would be about my guess. I'm going to go slightly under. Let's say 72.
76 for Joe Pesci.
Wow.
Yeah. So he is up there.
Are we going to see him again? You think he's going to?
Yeah, well, he's in The Irishman, which is the new Martin Scorsese Netflix movie.
Got to see that.
Right.
Just to see Joe Pesci again.
Yeah. Coming out of retirement.
Yeah.
So, wow. Brings us to the end of a great jaw, a Spider-Man jaw.
Hey, how about it?
First and foremost, we got to thank our guest, John. Thanks for coming back on Cinemajaw.
Thanks for having me here. It was a lot of fun.
Can't wait to get out to the parks and enjoy some cinema.
Yeah, come on out.
Yeah,
Yes.
looking forward to it.
We also got to thank our engineer, the guy over there behind the glass inside the fish tank. Thanks, Phil.
Yeah, of course. Thank you guys. It's always my favorite night of the week. I love seeing you guys. And real quick, wanted to shout out, since this is coming out the week of the holiday, just to have a happy 4th, everybody.
Oh, good call, Phil.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
We are actually off next week, Matt. A little summer vacation.
A little well-deserved
Yes.
summer vacation.
I'm going up to Wisconsin. You're going
I'll
to?
be in Kalamazoo.
Yeah, Michigan. So people are traveling. So we'll have a week off.
Hey, right. Be careful with the fireworks. Huh?
I will.
Don't drink too
Come
much.
back with all your fingers.
That's right.
Yes. We also got to thank our sponsors.
Yes, thanks to Overcast and the Chicago Podcast Co-op who help us get cool sponsors like them.
Yes. If you want to support Cinemajaw, the easiest way to do so is by leaving us a review wherever you're listening to this podcast.
And while you're there, click subscribe. One extra button helps us out tremendously.
Until next week, I'm Ryan, the movie guy.
I'm Matt Kay, and keep on jawing about the movies.